Evening or morning if you're watching. Um, I did a video several months back, almost a full year ago now. Um, Basically, it was about me becoming an atheist. And I was watching a Prophet of Zod video earlier today, and one of them said something that sparked a memory in me that I completely forgot that I had, but was a kind of an important thing to me as a kid. So basically, it was about being bleh, indoctrinated into religion growing up, and it's usually just the same thing. But one of them said, or about the guy that he had speaking in that particular segment was talking about it, and he mentioned growing up and you had to make sure that you undid enough of the bad that you did, in order to avoid hell. And that actually reminded me of something. Growing up, even though I was raised Catholic, and Catholics weren't nearly as hardcore about this when I was a kid, I did fear, like, going to hell. Like, that was my greatest fear for a lot of years when I was a little kid. And that sparked something in me. Something I hadn't really thought about. That being, when I was a little kid, I viewed the whole point to life being a test to get to heaven. Like, that was the whole point. You had no other reason to live. It was designed solely so that you can prove that you deserve to go to heaven. Looking back, I realize how ridiculous that sounds, but when you're a little kid, it's not ridiculous. And that made me realize that, or it reminded me of something that I hadn't thought about in well over 2 decades. I'm 32 now, so this was well when I was in the single digits. Like, I thought that in order to go to heaven, think of it like a scale. You got the good deeds over here, you got the bad deeds over here. I thought that if you do more good deeds, you go to heaven. You do more bad deeds, you go to hell. It didn't matter what they were. One outweighed the other. Purgatory is if you had an exact zero sum. And I didn't really have too many thoughts on purgatory, just that it's if you came up with zero for the number of good deeds versus bad deeds you have. And that's how that was explained to me, was that you're equally as good as bad. But if you had so much as one more good deed, you go to heaven. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be holding the door open for your sister. One more good deed, regardless of what it is, you go to heaven. And if you do one more bad deed, or sin, if you will, then you go to hell. So, when I was a little kid, my fear was not being able to balance the equation. It was not being able to do more good deeds and bad deeds. Because when you're a little kid, you don't really know what's right and wrong. So I was afraid that I wasn't doing enough good deeds to undo all the bad deeds I did. And since growing up Catholic, you're guilty. It doesn't matter whether you're guilty or not, you're guilty. So that caused that stir in me, that fear that I wasn't doing enough, and made my greatest fear going to hell. So, years down the road when people are like, so you're not really concerned about the relationship with God, you're more concerned about avoiding hell. And that was true. I've never viewed anything as a relationship with God, even when I did believe in God. Because it's like, I'm talking to you, but you're not talking to me or anyone else for that matter. So what's the point? I mean, that relationship's entirely one way, and one-way relationships don't work on any level. They don't work. So, yeah, like I viewed it as a balancing act. Like I have to do more good deeds, and it scared me so much so that I remember, I think it was like 11 or 12, watching Treehouse of Horror, Simpsons Halloween special, if you're unaware, as a little kid with my sister. Well, I wasn't really little, but I was still a kid. I was watching it with my sister, and there was a scene where Homer is going to hell because God wasn't watching him save a baby. It's still a funny scene. And he goes, "I'll be damned." God goes, "Yes, Homer, I'm afraid you are." Pulls the lever, goes down. And all the drawing of hell and whatnot is all there. The illustration of what we picture, basically based on Dante's Divine Comedy. And then there's Satan just like got him, giving him a noogie. "Quiet, wake up John Wayne." Only, I'm laughing about it now. When I was a little kid, I wasn't laughing. And I wasn't just sitting there silent. Like, I was panicking. Like, I was visibly panicking. And my sister's like, "Adam, if it bothers you that much, just leave the room." It had never occurred to me before that that was even an option. To just, or that it's okay, it's not, or you're not going to go to hell from having seen it. And it really was from that point on that I really started going in the direction of, maybe this is an irrational fear. I have no idea if there's a word, I'm pretty sure that there is, in psychology, like a phobia for the fear of hell. I have no idea what it would be called. My guess would be hellophobia, but that doesn't really sound psychological. Or it doesn't sound Latin enough for it to be an actual psychological term. But it really was from that point on that it really was getting over that fear of hell. And it made me realize that the only reason I ever believed in heaven was to avoid going to hell. I had no actual imagery in my mind of what heaven would look like, but I had plenty of imagery of what hell looked like. That it was just fire and brimstone and you're just living in a furnace. Like, the idea of pain didn't really register with me, but the idea of fire, don't fuck with that shit. At least that was my understanding. So, yeah. I just really wanted to talk about that, and this really is my best outlet for it. I'm glad I'm doing that. So, I'm not going to ask you to keep watching my videos. I've only got one other one, and I don't know if I'm going to post another, so, yeah, cool.